Hey guys, welcome to today's video. Before we go ahead and get started, I just want to start by saying thank you for all the love, the support, and the positivity that you guys have been putting into my channel. It really means a lot. Today I was browsing the internet looking at the Sony a7 IV, rumors on that camera that's going to be coming later this year. Because, I mean, heck, for those of you who are a little bit camera nerdy, the a7S III has already been announced, ready for pre-orders. That's a super exciting camera, but when I Googled the a7 IV, what came up, the third recommended video in Google video recommendations was my video on that. And I saw that it had like 4.2 thousand views. So thank you guys so much. I know there were complaints that the title was a bit too clickbaity. So I'm thinking about addressing that for future rumor videos. Probably not, just because I kind of have a thing going and it's working pretty well for me with the titles. But I just wanted to thank you guys so much for the support, and to kind of prove to you and to prove to myself that this channel is not necessarily just all about the numbers. Because I mean, 4,000 views every video, wow, that's fantastic. Like, I could get monetized so quick off that, and I could be really popping off on YouTube, growing. But it's not necessarily all about just the numbers and the people that you can reach. It's kind of about what you're preaching, what you're saying, the content. And I do not want my channel to be solely based on camera rumors, because I do think that environment gets a little toxic, especially with accusations of, hey, you don't know the facts, you didn't talk to Canon about that, you didn't call them on the phone, the Japanese dude who doesn't even speak English, and get those facts affirmed. It can kind of get a little toxic, I'm not gonna lie. I do enjoy making videos on rumored cameras. I think it's a fun space to just have that environment to talk about things that have been heard, things that have been said, and ideas for what is going to be presented in the future for tech advancements. I think that's super exciting. But in today's video, I really want to talk about kind of the dialogue between story and passion and creativity and art versus gear, tech, specs, lenses, cameras, all of the stuff that is so easy to get caught up in. And I think so many times we've heard the saying, story trumps gear. And if you have a good story to tell, if you effectively are able to communicate that on a screen in video format, then it doesn't matter what you're shooting with. And I'm sorry, but in my opinion, I'm gonna have to disagree with that. I think that gear is a tool to help you create your stories, help you tell what you want to tell, and display the visuals that you really want. And there's so many pieces of gear, so many camera brands, lens manufacturers, that you really have the opportunity to customize the viewing experience that your audience is going to go through. And with that in mind, I do think gear plays a critical role, just as much so as planning the shots, developing the story, because in the end, what you shoot on, and especially with lens choice, focal lengths, apertures, it's really going to affect the final product and how the story is perceived and viewed by the audience. So in that defense, in that argument, gear plays a hugely significant role. And I think that might be the extent to which gear matters, or should matter. And so from my experience, from my journey where I'm at now, I do really think that gear has gotten to a point where it's gone far beyond that, a little bit to the unhealthy side. I was on Fuji in the last video. I just really think that the storm, the whirlwind of gear that I've personally gone through in my journey, and in these short few months, just changing from Canon to Fuji, back to Canon, and then selling my Canon R to get the R6, it's been a little bit crazy. And so I just really want to talk about and be real about my experience with this conversation and this kind of battle. Because if you are a filmmaker, or if you do make videos for a hobby or professionally, to some degree, you've experienced this dilemma. So I think what's super important is to just really be honest with yourself, and to just, like I said in my previous video, really address and jot down your needs as a creator. And it's so easy to get caught up in all of the new revolutionary tech. There's been just so many new releases every single year and new rumors every single month that unless you're really straight up about what you want in terms of performance and what you need in terms of specs, you're gonna get lost in the sauce, just like I did, and just like so many other filmmakers have, and it is darn expensive. And it doesn't do the best for your self-esteem because you feel like you're financially kind of out of control. And so for some, this comes easy. For some, they prioritize people and the story and who they're trying to reach and connect with and the audience and the crew that they're working with. Like, this is a people job, not necessarily behind a desk editing all day by yourself in isolation. Maybe for quarantine and COVID, it's kind of turned into that. But for a lot of people, this job and being a videographer, a filmmaker, is about connecting with others, interpersonal relationships, being able to learn more about someone that you've never met before. And that is a really cool side of video, of photo, of filmmaking that I think is just irreplaceable. And so for those individuals, maybe overlooking gear is a bit easier to do. And I think to be on either end of the extreme is not very conducive to growth in the long term. I think maybe in the short term, if you put off gear and you're really just focusing on developing relationships, networking, then yeah, it might be a bit easier to get some clients from your social skills and whatnot. But you do really need to have a combination of a solid, not only just a solid set of gear and knowing like your equipment, but having experience using a wide variety of different pieces of equipment, different camera brands, different types of cameras. I think there's just a lot of value and versatility when you show up to a shoot. Like if a client rents out a certain camera, being able to know how to use that without looking it up on the day of the shoot, on the set, because that certainly doesn't instill very much confidence in employers. If you're like, wait, oh, I don't know how to like turn on the camera, let me just quick Google this. Having gear knowledge is super useful in my opinion. And that's one thing I'm very grateful for with my gear obsession is I've poured so much time, effort, a lot of my resources into staying updated and making sure that my knowledge on gear, my knowledge on what is being released at what time, how to use different pieces of gear, what different pieces of gear do. Like it took me a long time to learn about what external recorders do, especially like the Atomos Ninja recorders. And actually, next video is going to be a bit about Atomos Ninja recorders. I'm just waiting to get mine in the mail so that I can make the video on it. I'm super excited for that. It's going to be great. So stay tuned next week. Don't worry, it's going to come out next week. I know I've been kind of like dropping the ball on my YouTube game, but all that to really say that having no knowledge in gear and in equipment is kind of foolish in my opinion, and it does provide value when you're on the set and when you're working with different videographers and their kits and their gear. I think it is valuable. Now, taken to the extreme, which I certainly have, it's a little bit unhealthy, and it can really kill your drive and your motivation to create and your inspiration to tell stories. And for me, I'm very lucky to have other creatives at similar places in their journey as I am, and some who are far beyond me in terms of skill, knowledge, and expertise that have been able to speak into me and speak into my journey, where I'm at now, some of the straight up just issues that others have observed in my growth and in my phase of being a videographer. So I was super blessed to be able to have these people speak into my journey and say, hey Ben, I'm gonna be real with you. You kind of have a problem. You're not the everyday dad. He's a YouTuber who makes videos on different cameras, and he basically buys a new camera and sells his cameras and whatever like every week. And that's kind of what my gear situation has looked like for me, is like switching cameras, lenses, accessories, batteries, whatever, like every week almost is what it feels like. And that is just insane, and it's really toxic, and it's bad for your relationships with those who you're financially kind of responsible to, whether it's a spouse, whether it's your parents, or if you're on your own, then your landlord, let's be real. But it also is just not great for, in no scenario is it a positive and is it healthy. So I'm very lucky to have had people call me out on that. And so that's one recommendation I have for you guys is, if you're a creator, even if you don't care about gear and you're on the completely opposite side of the spectrum that I am, get some buddies who are into what you are into. Because when you're at your times, when you have your ruts or your writer's block, your creator's block, you can go to those people and just say, hey, let's create. Hey, please teach me how to color grade like you. Just find people who share the interest. And that is such a huge piece of advice that so many others in completely different fields will give you, because in community, we're stronger. In community, we're more inspired, we're more motivated, we're just more talented, honestly. And it cuts the learning curve in probably more than half, because you just have so many more minds, creative minds, intelligent minds to draw information from. And the value that that gives is just undeniable. So get some friends. And so without those people who called me out, I wouldn't have been able to spot these areas, and things would have started to snowball to an even worse degree. And I'm very fortunate that I kind of caught myself, and I have a relative plan set up for my future and for the short term, as far as what my gear should look like and what my gear is going to look like. And beyond that, if you get more obsessed with like the gear than you are about actually filming, actually editing, being with people on set, meeting new clients, doing whatever kinds of shoots you do, I think there's a problem. And maybe at that point, video is something you maybe could take a break from, or it's just not what you're passionate about anymore. And that was kind of something that really scared me, because I really dived into being a videographer, changed my major. I quit my job to be a videographer and kind of a photographer. And so like I really invested in this decision, and to kind of feel like that passion was dying was super scary for me. And I've been able to realize that no, I'm not going to quit being a videographer. I actually do still love it. But I'm just in kind of a rut right now where I'm not feeling inspired and motivated, because for me, like the tip of the iceberg is the creative part and the creative process and making and shooting, and the iceberg, the mass of it underneath the surface is just gear. And so I need to balance it out, create a balance. And that's really what life is all about, for being honest, making sure that you're balancing your time, your attention, your finances, your relationships. Everything needs to be in balance. Otherwise, you're going to end up like me and burning out, thinking that maybe this is not for you, and quitting if you didn't have to, and that's really tragic if you give up when it was completely unnecessary and could have been avoided. So I'm kind of making this video to remind you guys of that, if you have already been aware of that for yourselves, or just to present a fresh opinion separate from yours on a topic that is important to be aware of. And in my journey, I'm definitely at the point where I know what I'm supposed to do. I doubted, I questioned, but I know I'm a videographer and that's who I want to be. And I don't feel insecure about my identity, about my passions, and I know that I want to do what God has called me to do. And that's super important to me. And I think a big part of that is like, yeah, I need to address this issue right now. I need to get my life in check, my finances in check, being straight up about transactions in check, because these are all issues that stem from the problem of gear. And I mean, gear is not a problem, guys. It's great. It's fantastic. There are so many conversations that can be had about it, and you can start a conversation with so many people just talking about it, because like others do get excited about new tech, new hype, new gear, new specs. It's super cool. It's super cool. And just the day and age we live in, where things are advancing at every corner, every day, it's really a blessing. It's unbelievable. But ultimately, I mean, this is all just temporary stuff, It all comes down to, where are you spending your time? Are you investing your time in learning things that will advance you in your craft, in making relationships with others who share a similar passion to you, to motivate, inspire, and teach you and walk with you, meet you where you're at? And are you spending time on growing and developing as an individual? So thanks for listening to my rant, guys. I know this video is not going to do crazy numbers. It's probably not going to get the numbers that my A7 IV video did, and I'm totally okay with that, because I really do think that this is a topic that I'm speaking, from my heart on, and it's just really an issue that I want to get off my chest so that I can move forward, so that I can tell more stories and be creative. Recently, I was offered a volunteer opportunity with an adoption kind of group where they help adoptees meet up with their birth parents, and this is something, a huge gaping hole in my life that has been present for my entire life, for 20 years. and to be able to tell stories of others who have met up with their birth parents, or who haven't, those who have failed in trying, kind of like me. It's gonna just, I think, change my view on videography, change my view on how it can impact others and the stories that can be told from it. And I think it'll be a really great revival and refresher on my passion, and to remind me about why I'm doing what I'm doing and why it's important. So I kind of feel like it's the Lord saying, hey Ben, let's revisit this. Let's check your priorities. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you spending so much time on it, so much money on it? And really just bringing it back to what is most important. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoy this one. I don't know. I enjoyed talking about it, and I really think that I had less, speech stutters, less hard cuts than in most of my videos, because this is something that is really genuine to me and close to me. So feel free to comment in the section below what your guys' thoughts are on this debate of gear versus story. Are you kind of seeing things like me? I am truly interested to hear your voices and your opinions, so don't be shy in the comments section. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Share it with your friends if you found this topic to be interesting in any bit. Next week is going to be fun. It's going to be about the Canon EOS R6 and R5 in a way that you can kind of override the overheating issues. So if you're interested in videos kind of like that, and about gear and about creativity, videography, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you guys next time.